Got Girl are a post-punk four-piece signed to Rough Trade Records, who've been building a subculture in mostly places like the Windmill in Brixton by hosting free shows with the likes of Shame, Happy Meal Limited, and uh, Fat White Families to discuss the idea of gentrification and its its issues within main southern London through the use of juxtaposition of beauty, fear, and sexuality and power, mostly through their music videos and their use of the visual dissonance in their costumes and their actual music itself to represent an iconoclast image to destroy the male icon. The name Goat Girl comes from the alter ego of comedian Bill Hicks and his character Goat Boy, which is a sensible relation as both represent seductive yet haunting characters, a typical characteristic of rock as a genre. This can also be seen in the logo, as you can see the horns represent almost a bosom, which I guess makes sense to do with the sensuality of Goat Girl's sound. The name also suggests a mix of innocence and the ominous by using the words girl mixed with the words goat, which can symbolise fear and sacrifice. Through this ideas by performance and singers, we get the idea that there is a sensual element to many performances of rock music. Theirs especially that isn't necessarily prevalent in the actual performance itself, but is there through the ideas represented in the lyrics and the music. Goat Girl also use their media, mostly their videos, to play off of males' perception of themselves by reframing themselves in tradition. This mostly to coincide with Laura Mulvey's idea of the male gaze and how they experiment with that. Especially mostly in the visuals of The Man, they play as a twist of the video "The Hard Day's Night" by the Beatles, making females be the ones being chased as opposed to the Beatles. This creates discourse for a gender, giving sort of fluidity that makes females the modern rock star, a typically male-associated role, especially in the 60s with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, all being male-dominated, most bands being male-dominated in that kind of time. Also, the fact that there is a multitude of people, all men, just chasing after them in the chorus, saying, "You're the man, you're the man, you're the man." It almost makes the idea of the man being insignificant because it could be any of them. It's now just became they're just a number. They're just a fan now, which is what females have been mostly reduced to in the years leading up to the current. The idea of lips being a motif is also quite obvious in the sense of they're used quite often, especially in Lottie, because she seems to be kind of the most prolific figure that appears in almost the first shot of most of the videos. I think lips also become a big theme in terms of delicacy and sexuality and like almost honesty. I think you can tell a lot from people's lips as much as their eyes. Eyes are also used quite powerfully in the sense of they never tend to be looking at the camera. They're always looking away in some way, shape, or form. I guess to kind of give an idea of a worldliness. But the idea of lips is also juxtaposed in videos like Scum, where they have like they're being force fed and there's food like falling out of their mouths and such. It kind of plays off the idea of the male gaze again, by instead of like just mixing it with this image of like first there being this beauty of the lips and the innocence, and then it immediately being destroyed by just being force fed this like disgusting like porridge or food. In this image of the go well, some of the members, I think that one's LED, running into the mailbox, the phone box there, you can actually see a poster, and the poster is actually of Go being placed over the similar image to A Hard Day's Night, which I guess begs the question of what would it be like if women were in that context in the 60s? Would they have actually been as famous? Maybe it could have happened and not been covered as much, but would they have been as successful, anywhere near as successful as the Beatles were in that day? And if so, how would that have affected life now? Gogo's idea of reframing the past also is a big theme in another video of theirs called Cracker Drawn, Crackadrill begins with the band set in like a 1960s or 1950s setting. They seem to kind of be uncomfortable driving in this like country road, just completely distant away from anyone else. And the camera immediately stills to a shot of Clotty's face, reinforcing the Butler's idea of the male gaze. We later see that the members have actually killed someone and are burning away the evidence. And I believe this to be a male body, as though it doesn't explicitly say or give it much idea to it, but I think it represents a more metaphorical idea of actually destroying the male ideals that have been instilled and been imposed on women from the 50s and onwards. And I feel like it subverts the expectations of, because now it's women driving the car, they're taking the wheel, as it were, to kind of carry on and make bands actually kind of, cool again and make them actually, desirable to be in one. I think it works as a really good way to destroy male conventions from the beginning. And the fact that it starts with like almost not comforted, but like the starts with like delicacy and like the fact that it's only just girls sitting in the car, as a point where they're laughing in the video, and then it ends with them all standing menacingly around this body in the dark as it's being set on fire. I think it's a really great idea of how even how it relates to the logo, how it relates to the image, of the fact that it starts off kind of light and takes you into this like darker, more ominous kind of turn. I think that's a big motif running through a lot of their image and their sound. The band's use of costume and clothing also, I think, is a very big indicator, as it doesn't just carry itself in the videos and the media, it also carries itself outside of the band and actually as a representation of themselves. And it begs the question of, especially through Frith, it kind of discusses the idea that they're not just playing themselves on stage, they're playing themselves all the time. And this idea of gender is very toyed with, especially in Rosie Bones. She, normally has like, either short buzz cuts or like leather jackets, tracksuit bottoms, boots, kind of the clothing you'd expect mostly in males, but the fact that she kind of wears it in this particularly like, sexually driven band almost, it adds a very interesting discourse into where you can kind of take the characters. And this, put next to, the idea of the stereotypical female clothing being used, like dresses, earrings, lipstick, it adds an idea of like not just this idea of like low working class, non-gentrified areas, a bit more archaic, but also the idea that that they can all be placed in this feminine atmosphere, and kind of adds almost like a protective element to the rest of the band. I mean, you can see that in videos like The Man, where she's the one that helps Lottie like run over to the taxi at the end to be safe. But you don't actually see her there. She's also the one driving the car in Crooked Bones, I think it's called. And I think that's a very important idea, and as a motif, this actually carries along a lot in their interviews as well. This isn't to say they're completely, playing against the male race. I mean, there's still many, many, many examples, especially in Clotty's lyrics, that actually give an idea that, there's almost a dependence on slight gazing, I guess. Only in this context, because obviously they need to keep up an image of like beauty, but then also otherwise it wouldn't make the reception stand out as well. But it also gives a good indication of branding, as they have to reinforce the idea that they can understand both images of the ominous and the ambiguous, and also of the more regimented, the more stereotypical kind of side of women in music. It means it can give a more generalized image and actually appeal to a lot more people. Generally in her lyrics, it kind of gives an idea that they're kind of symbiotic. You need these men to gaze, you need them to see the beauty to first understand a bit more of the actual intelligence behind the image and behind the sound that they portray. I believe that Giltgar's use of media and construction of identity has been a very important and very useful in understanding where image, especially I guess in this case female image, can be placed in modern media, and how it can be played upon and kind of manipulated to create a sense of interest really. I believe that the idea of post-punk and the punk attitudes that Hebbage instills and creates can be associated a lot with bands like this, especially in this kind of Brixton environment where things are a bit more archaic, and there's obviously a need for change if there's so many ideas, especially about like sexual health and understanding that need to be addressed. I think this is a good idea in the sense of it represents it at least gives a discourse, especially if you relate it to Hevge's idea in social culture, it creates a process of meaning construction rather than a final product, and I think that's the right way to go about it.